For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin in Argentina, where the Train of Dignity has reenacted a historic trip from Buenos Aires to Mar del Plata. It's part of the 9th anniversary celebrations of a historic summit of the Americas. It was on November 5th, 2005 that Néstor Kirchner, Lula da Silva, Hugo Chavez, and Tabaré Vázquez and Evo Morales boarded a train which took them to the Argentine coastal city of Mar del Plata. At the gathering, they rejected the free trade area of the Americas, which many say marked the end of neoliberalism in the region. Here's our correspondent, Leonel Poblete.
The Train of Dignity departed Buenos Aires bound for Mar del Plata early Wednesday morning to remember the day Latin America defeated the free trade agreement of the Americas, and to denounce another imperialist aggression to the region, the vulture funds.
A part of remembering the victory over the free trade area of the Americas agreement, we look at the present and affirm the need to advance in the unity of Latin America.
Fraternal internationalist support from all across the continent boarded the train to celebrate.
If today we have a different Latin America, it's thanks to having said no to the free trade agreement of the Americas, although other variants have emerged to change its name under the same objective, which is the state of alert we must pass on to the next generations.
The youth is going to remember these 9 years of resistance, of struggle, of sovereignty, of the strength of our peoples, and the precedents of Latin America against imperialism.
Under the motto, in 2005 we said no to the FTAA, now we say no to the vulture funds, hundreds of people arrived in Mar del Plata with hope, joy and great enthusiasm, marching through the city towards a rally which remembered that historic day in 2005.
Today we commemorate that rejection to the FTAA by also rejecting the vultures that want to oppress us.
What am I supporting? I am supporting those decisions made against imperialism and subordination, and I support sovereignty.
A favor de la soberanía de nuestro país.
Latin America marches firmly towards its second and definitive independence, alert and it's determined to defeat all forms of imperialist aggression. Reporting from Mar del Plata, Leonel Poblete Coduti, Telesur.
Thanks to Leonel. The 6th of November marks the anniversary of Colombia's Palace of Justice siege, an event for which the families of victims are still searching for answers. Here's our correspondent, Charles Parkinson.
29 years ago, the people depicted in this display disappeared at the hands of the Colombian state. They were just some of the victims of a heavy-handed military response to the storming of the Palace of Justice by the M19 guerrilla group that left dozens dead, including almost half of the country's Supreme Court justices. Relatives of those disappeared continue to demand answers, but almost 3 decades later, they remain in the dark.
The basic truth, which we have always longed for, has not been provided, but because there has not been a policy on the part of the state to seek out the truth behind the events.
Today, the disappearances that followed the 1985 Palace of Justice siege remain a scandal in Colombia, with corrupt elements of the military known to have not only facilitated the guerrillas' entrance, but also the brutal response.
It appears that within the criminal apparatus that was created for this event, there is a silent pact. As such, there has never been an acceptance of what happened in the Palace of Justice. There has always been evasion.
The anniversary comes little over a week after retired General Jesus Armando Arias was sentenced to 35 years in prison for his part in the army's response. A sentence some family members say is meaningless to them while the fate of their loved ones remains unknown. Though the Colombian state has so far failed to provide the truth, an ongoing legal process in the Inter-American Court for Human Rights is expected to deliver a verdict in December or February, therefore offering hope for new answers in the near future. Charles Parkinson, Telesur in Bogotá, Colombia.
And thanks to Charles. And now we go to Venezuela, where our correspondent is attending the Pre-COP Social Climate Change Conference. Attendees hope to come to conclusions on how to combat climate change.
Thanks, Cody. Just to give you a brief update on developments here at the Social Pre-COP in Margarita, Venezuela. Now, the event actually got going at around 11 a.m. this morning and was opened up by the Venezuelan Foreign Affairs Minister, Rafael Ramirez. The floor was then passed over to global social movements who covered a variety of issues. In particular, they demanded that the North take historical responsibility for its role in causing climate change and said that richer countries should in fact provide the financial resources in order to be able to combat it. They also went on to demand a more permanent role for civil society in the UN talks on climate change and detailed a number of principles and commitments that they would like to see adopted. They've now gone back to the negotiating table with the UN representatives, and we expect the conclusions of today to be released later on this evening. Rachel Boothroyd for Telesur in Margarita, Venezuela.
And thanks to Rachel, we now go to Cuba, where the country is holding an international trade fair trying to attract outside investment. The 32nd International Business Fair in Havana continued today, bringing together more than 500 Cuban businesses and 60 nations. The fair is aimed at finding partners with technological capacity, something lacking domestically. That's largely due to over half a century of blockades by the United States. The event follows a new law this year that encourages foreign investment. And to Brazil now for a mystery that has left many baffled. Huge numbers of fish have been dying in the sea at Guanabara Bay in Rio de Janeiro, where for the past 3 weeks, 20 tons of dead fish have been found in 5 days. The fisher people complain that they are forced to buy fish to resell as their weekly wage has been cut by more than half. They demand that the government check the activities of the refineries and the petrochemical industry. Many of the fishers believe the fish are dying due to crimes against the environment. A sacred tunnel discovered last week in the ancient Mexican city of Teotihuacan will go on display in 2015 in Mexico's National Museum of Anthropology. The tunnel was full of thousands of ritual objects and may lead to royal tombs. If confirmed, this would be very significant because there is no physical evidence of the rulers of the ancient city of Teotihuacan, as its inhabitants did not leave behind written records. Over 50,000 artifacts were found inside the tunnel located below the temple of the plumed serpent. The artifacts will provide clues into how the city's priests and rulers perceived the underworld. And we now turn to Iraq, where government forces say they killed at least 18 Islamic State group members in a series of airstrikes earlier today. Most of the casualties were in the militant-held city of Baiji, north of Baghdad. Iraqi government forces are currently trying to retake Baiji from the Islamic State group. The city is strategically important for its oil refinery, the largest in Iraq. The refinery itself is still in government hands, but troops are reportedly surrounded on all sides by the Islamic State group's fighters. Meanwhile, in Libya, fierce fighting has broken out between the forces loyal to Libya's government and militias in the city of Benghazi. The fighting is between fighters loyal to General Khalifa Haftar and a coalition of militias calling themselves the Shura Council. Libya has been in a state of chaos since August when yet another rebel group pushed the internationally recognized Libyan government out of the capital of Tripoli. And yet another blow to the government. Earlier today, the country's Supreme Court declared the parliament unconstitutional, prompting renewed fears Libya could be teetering towards a full-scale civil war. And to Brussels now, where Eurozone leaders are meeting today to decide the fate of Greece. European finance ministers are mulling whether to end controversial bailout conditions a year early. Athens is likely to push for leeway to end unpopular austerity policies while keeping a financial safety net in place to reassure lenders. And we stay in Brussels. Tens of thousands of Belgians have staged the first major protest against the country's new right-wing government. In the months since it came to power, the government has infuriated workers with plans to raise the retirement age, slash healthcare and social security spending, and cancel a wage increase set to come into effect next year. Unions say the government is forcing austerity on working-class Belgians while letting the rich off the hook. Now to China, where the country's Apple users are being targeted by a mysterious new form of malware. For the first time, Apple's operating system for tablet computers and smartphones has been successfully targeted by a conventional virus. According to research published by Palo Alto Networks, the virus spreads to smartphones and tablets when they are connected to infected Macintosh computers. The researchers say they haven't yet figured out what the virus actually does. A look at sports now. England's rugby team is preparing for a tough match Saturday with New Zealand's All Blacks. While the All Blacks enjoyed a clean sweep of victories in June's test matches, the English are going into Saturday's match after being hard hit by injuries. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.